Hey guys, welcome to the Learn Feng Shui podcast, where you'll learn Feng Shui from a classical point of view, taking out the myth and superstition. So if you're interested in learning Feng Shui, Chinese astrology, all things Chinese metaphysics, as well as the superstitions and myths that connect it all, you'll enjoy learning Feng Shui with me. Hey guys, today we're going to talk about Feng Shui inspired design for your wedding. Hey guys, welcome to today's episode of the Learn Feng Shui podcast. I'm Candace Berlenga, your certified Feng Shui practitioner and red ribbon professional with the International Feng Shui Guild. Today, we're going to talk about Feng Shui inspired wedding design. So, we're going to kind of look at how Feng Shui inspired design can be integrated into your big day, your celebration. We're going to look at how Feng Shui can transform your special day into a harmonious and even auspicious occasion. I know the summertime is big for weddings, and maybe you're even planning a wedding for the future. When we're looking at Feng Shui inspired design, again, we're kind of getting away from the original and intended purpose of Feng Shui and kind of repurposing it into more of a design aspect for this occasion. And so doing things like making it meaningful, looking at the energy flow, timing, the venue, the guest list, and colors that you put into your wedding can help add those special little touches. Which brings me to my first point, or my first tip, maybe making it meaningful. I think it is easy to look at these big weddings we see online and want to compare ourselves to these influencers that we see. But sometimes the budget isn't there. And I think the most important thing before we even look at any design aspects is to look at what makes it meaningful to you. Do you want it to be small and intimate? I think when you do a small, intimate wedding, you're better able to kind of curate and put money into other aspects of the wedding design wise that you might want to focus on instead of having the biggest guest list you could have. So, making your wedding be meaningful doesn't necessarily have to depend on the size of the wedding either. When we're looking at making it meaningful, some things you can also consider is the timing. We can look at things like the time of year you're getting married, a date that is meaningful to you. So, perhaps you and your partner have a special date. Maybe you want to get married on an anniversary or a date that just has a special little meaning to you specifically to add the dates that you will remember. Other things to kind of consider though is date selection. So in Eastern cultures, with Chinese metaphysics, we do use date selection to pick a wedding, and there's definitely auspicious dates to hold a wedding. More practically, you want to look at things like your honeymoon. So are you going to plan your honeymoon around seasonal weather? Like you don't want to take a cruise when you're in hurricane season, things like that. So do be careful that you're looking at seasonal and regional weather where you're at or where you're going to be going, and make sure that you're going to get ideal weather for your wedding. Do you have a favorite season that you really want to play into? For me and my husband were married on Valentine's Day. For me, that kind of transitioned from after Christmas into the months where February still gets snow. It seems to be very special to me. There's a couple reasons for this. Me and my husband kind of got together on Valentine's Day, but when we were very young, we spent our first Valentine's together and it snowed that night. We didn't really expect it to snow, and we woke up to a lot of snow on the ground. It was very cold and we weren't really prepared. And it was kind of humorous, I suppose, looking back on. And so for some reason that really brings me back to that time in my life. So getting married around that same season can be meaningful to you. Picking a place that's special to you and your partner can be one of the steps to make this wedding meaningful. Is there a place that maybe your fiance proposed to you? Is there a place that you go all the time and just think it'd be lovely for a wedding? Another thing you can do is if you have family all over the United States, consider a central location for your guests. So if you live in a certain state and your family lives in another state, consider moving it to a central location for the guests to be able to go. And that also goes for in town. So it doesn't have to be in a different state, but maybe you want to consider the location within town that's easy to get to for your guests. And speaking of guests, I talked earlier about how large you want your wedding. So go big or small based on your comfort level. I know I had a niece that just got married this past year, and she said she didn't really want a big wedding. And I was one that didn't want a big wedding either. I was just fine having a small courthouse wedding, and that's what she did too. Yeah, just do what feels best to you based on your comfort level, because if you are one that is fairly shy and you try to have a very large wedding, you might be too nervous in front of people. Or if you really like to be out there and you want all the socializing, then a larger wedding might be right up your alley. So do what feels good based on your comfort level. You don't want to make yourself too nervous or not enjoy your wedding. And I believe that one of the biggest decisions you have to make during your wedding is the color schemes and flowers. So we're definitely going to talk about that, okay? And of course, adding meaning by adding special flowers and colors that are specific to your taste is definitely going to help make that wedding feel like it's tailored to you. But let's take a look at colors and talk about what they mean in a wedding. Red. Red is actually supposed to be very, very lucky for a wedding. Red is not only a traditional Chinese wedding color, but accenting your wedding day with red also creates a strong atmosphere of love and romance. It does represent the element of fire, and it represents spirituality, inspiration, attention, and sensuality. If you're not really into the red, which I think is just beautiful against the classic black and white, the black tux with the white dress and a red rose on the boutonniere, I think is beautiful. It's just very classic and elegant. But if you don't really like red and you want to add the fire energy, you can consider oranges, but even burnt oranges, it doesn't have to be those bright or, neon orange or anything like that. Hot pinks or other bright, vibrant colors can also represent that fire energy. Pink's perfect for a younger couple because it's very like young, romantic, sweet love. Pink does invoke a sense of kind of playfulness and lightheartedness, and it does give off a sexy and passionate kind of vibe. It reminds me of that scene in Steel Magnolias when Julia Roberts is getting her hair done and she talks about her color scheme being blush and bashful. And her mother, played by Sally Field, says it's pink and it looks like Pepto Bismol. So, you do you. And she said she loved it. One of my favorite movies. Okay. So, but it also is the element of earth and also represents the relationship of a mother-daughter. And so it could be a very mothering, nurturing kind of energy. It does represent stability, steadiness, and cultivation. And instead of pink, so if you don't love the pinks, you could do yellows, beige, browns, and golds, which are all very earthy in nature. I think golds are a very lovely way to add earth energy to your wedding. And you know what? You can mix all these up. You don't have to just stick with one of them. So, purple and violet is good for a smaller, more intimate wedding celebration with close family and friends. Purples give off a sexy and passionate vibe, also. And that is the element of wood, and it represents growth, learning, and connection. So, you can think about if you want to add that meaning to your wedding. And this is the deep and light greens and the purple colors. You can add elements of nature. So the flower is going to be a wood energy already, anyways. You don't necessarily have to add the purples and greens to it. Next, the classic black and white, a favorite combination for creating positive feng shui. Black and white together represent a strong, balanced relationship like the yin and yang. Next is going to be your blues and greens. So, a good color combo for a couple who have known each other for a long time or a second wedding, because blue and green does promote a calm feeling. Blue does represent that energy of water, and it represents wisdom and even movement. And that could also be like really deep purples. Black also is the water element, and any sort of blue color. But remember, when you pair that with a green, that does represent a peach blossom. So water and wood is a peach blossom, which might be perfect for a wedding. So the peach blossom in feng shui is considered to be the energy that promotes love and passion. Looking at yellows, this is earth energy, but bright, sunny colors represent the hue of cheerfulness, like the sun, and it's a perfect color to add to any less than well lit ceremony or reception space. So you can use color to brighten a space also. And again, it's that stability. So I think that's a nice thing to add to a wedding. And orange, we talked about orange a second ago, but it's a good color for couples with large guest lists. Orange gives off a sense of warmth, promoting conversation and a comfortable atmosphere. And then metallic kind of colors, that energy of metal. It does represent creativity, execution, decision making, organization, and even can promote communication. So these are going to be metallics, white, satiny, iridescent, and holographic, and even silver colors. So I think that's really lovely. And again, you can incorporate meaning based on what you would like to kind of convey or symbolize for your wedding, which I think is lovely. And I'll put a link to the show notes. Arguably, another really large decision you're going to have to make when you're planning a wedding is looking at the flowers. Whether you just have a smaller ceremony and you just have a small bouquet, or you have the whole place decked out in arrangements, you're going to have to pick flowers at some point, right? Look at the meaning of the flower to you. Sometimes there's different religious traditions that could dictate that choice. So, you want to really take that into consideration also. But flowers can have different meanings, and maybe you are just kind of looking for something to add a different type of a meaning. So, looking at the commonly used flowers here, daisy symbolize innocence and simplicity. Hydrangeas symbolize unity and togetherness. Lily does represent purity and refinement. The lilac represents youth and innocence, and gardenias represent clarity and hope. Other flowers could include the chrysanthemum, which does represent joy and optimism, the sunflower, which is adoration and loyalty, the zinnia, which is respect and honor, and the violet, which is faith and affection. And if you want to go for that classic romance, you can, of course, look to the red rose, romance and passion. The tulip does represent perfection and royalty. A carnation is fascination and distinction. An orchid is refinement and luxury. And a peony is beauty and elegance. So just kind of take that into consideration. And I know even different color roses represent different things. So even if you just want to use roses but different colors, you can add that into your bouquet or your arrangements also. And, including a sacred or a meaningful symbol or a color into your bouquet might make it extra special for that day. Here would be an example: incorporating a blue because yours your grandmother's favorite color, or maybe you put a butterfly on your bouquet because it reminds you of a loved one. My niece got married this past January, and one of the sweetest things that I saw somebody give her was her aunt on her dad's side. And she actually gave her a little picture of her dad in it who had passed away for her to attach to her bouquet. And those little things like that are going to be more meaningful, and they're really going to add those special little touches to your day and make them very memorable. Really just taking the time to kind of put those little touches on it that really add that specialness is going to go a long way to make your day memorable for you. Just looking at a couple practical things that can be incorporated, especially with the flow of energy, is signs directing the flow of traffic and actually decorating to go with the flow of the building. I know sometimes there's different odd shapes, different venues, maybe things are broken up in a certain way that seems kind of odd, but going with the flow of that building, having things clearly marked in clearly marked areas. Maybe your venue is going to be somewhere that it's maybe off the beaten path. Putting some balloons or signage directing guests can be very helpful, and ushers showing people to their seats. And of course, table placements and things like that can be very helpful in guests finding their way to where they need to be. Make sure you put a lot of signage, put arrows, and direct guests to where they should be. And that'll kind of help direct also the flow of energy. So just remember, Feng Shui is all about flow and the way the energy is being received. Again, make sure the venue is flowing nicely. All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's episode about Feng Shui inspired wedding design, Feng Shui for your wedding. You guys have an amazing week, and I'll catch you guys next week. It's going to be a repeat episode, the best of, and then I'll catch you for that July energy update.
For a free energy mapping of your floor plan, please check the link in the show notes. To support today's podcast, go to learnfengshui.com, sign up for emails, leave a review, and share with your family and friends.